Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's a great pleasure to be able to share Banff Centre with one of my very dear friends, Adrian Ananatawan, who I've gotten to know over the last many years. Adrian, I was just talking to him back in the corner. I consider Adrian an artist, a violinist, and a wonderful one at that. He is associate professor at Berkeley in Boston. He's also director of music at the Milton Academy, a very fine private school in the Boston area. He's a new father 2 weeks ago, born Beatrice to him. He's a graduate of the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, which is, let's put that in perspective, people. It's the hardest college to get into in the United States. It's a harder college to get into than Yale, than Harvard, than Princeton. It has the lowest accept rate of any college in North America. Try to do that without all of your limbs, and then it's off the charts. In addition to graduating from Curtis, he did a master's at Yale in music, and then he did another master's at Harvard in education. And he is a remarkable artist, as I said, but also a disability advocate in that incredible space. And I've had some wonderful experiences with them both making music, having him on my stage at Rockport in Massachusetts, where he's performed recitals, and also with the wonderful group of Far Cry. And when he moved to Toronto shortly after I had relocated to Toronto, we did some outreach together at some public schools in the Toronto area, and I saw the power of his story and his message, which is remarkable. So we're thrilled to have Adrian with us. He's going to present for about 45 minutes, and then welcome some Q&A. So Adrian, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for being here so early. I think this is the first thing on everyone's schedule, so I'll promise to be somewhat interesting. At very least, music is why we're all here, and as Barry was saying, really centering art first, but also in my talk, trying to combine that with social advocacy and impact, and really thinking about those in the margins who may not necessarily have access to the privilege of this incredible art form. And what I hope that you might leave at the end of sharing my story is the idea that bringing in and folding in diversity, especially folks with disabilities, into the classical music sphere ends up increasing and evolving our art form. We're here at the Center of Creativity and Innovation, so I'm really thinking about that latter word, innovation, and what that really entails as it relates to our values and how we want to be here doing this work for the betterment of not only ourselves, our fields, but just as many people in this world as possible. So I thought I would just start with a piece of music. I'll play some Bach for you. This is an Andante from the Third Violin Sonata. It's one of my favorites, very peaceful, and I think just so reflective of this beautiful space and environment that we're here within today. And then I'll do a little sharing. So thank you again for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Love playing music like that. I think that Bach represents such incredible complexity to our humanity, and what I love about it especially is like the embrace of dissonance and resolution, and just to be able to create a piece like that for one instrument, I think is just monumental. So I really appreciate sharing that with you. So I wanted to share a little bit about my background and story and how I sort of came to in this space, and talk a little bit about sort of my growth and evolution as an artist, and hopefully give you a few minutes at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So as you can see, I was born without a right hand here. And that was a surprise for my mom, who's to the right of that slide right there. I think that my mom in particular was afraid to share this news with my grandmother, who's a stern, sort of looking Cantonese woman to the left. She is filled with joy seeing her newborn baby. I promise you that. Because when she saw me for the first time, my grandmother, we like to call that a paw in Cantonese, she said in Chinese to my mom that there really wasn't anything radically different about me as a baby, even though there was an obvious physical difference. She said that I laughed and cried like any baby, and that all I needed was a little bit of exercise for my smaller right hand. So she went to the marketplace in Hong Kong and bought me this bracelet. This is an older picture of it. It's tarnished. It used to be bright silver. And at the end of that bracelet, you can see that there are a couple bells that are attached to that bracelet. So whenever I was in the crib, my grandmother would put that bracelet on my small hand. And like most babies, whenever I sort of shook my hand, it made a very interesting jingling sound. And I could do that for hours, according to my parents. And my grandmother said in so many words to my mom, see, he's already working on his biceps. And he's like, you know, also working to become a musician, because this was probably my first instrument, which most kids start off on as a percussionist. Pots and pans came later, but I love sharing that story because I think that I was very blessed from the very beginning of having supports in place that really stemmed from just a choice that my family made to see me as a complete individual, rather than trying to notice the things that were missing in the end, especially on the outside. And I think that really did inform a lot of how I want to continue practicing my work around accessibility, seeing the whole person first, and then really allowing me to explore the world like any normal child. So I was in 5th grade, and our elementary music school teacher all wanted us to play an instrument, and she chose the recorder, which I was not particularly thrilled about, not only because not my favorite instrument, but number 2, I just wouldn't be able to play any of the notes on the instrument because of all the holes that you need to depress in order to play the notes. So my parents started looking for different options that I could do outside of school in order to participate. The first idea was the trumpet, because I could hold it with one hand, but I didn't really identify with the sound. It was a little too loud, maybe too much reminiscent of an elephant to me, at least. And then my father thought it would be nice that I would sing, very economical, at least for my parents. Didn't really have I don't know, the best voice as a child. They wouldn't say that directly to me, but they sort of were encouraging me to explore different options. And I was very lucky at that point to be watching television, and Sesame Street was on the television. And I'm not sure if folks here are familiar, but like Sesame Street's incredible in terms of representing different identities and really doing that in a safe way and compelling way for young children. So I came across this clip, and luckily it is archived on YouTube, so I was able to find it and play it now.
Oh, those steps. You know, some things that are really easy for you are real hard for me.
Yeah, but some things are easy for you that are hard for me.
So that was a beautiful confluence of just being at the right place at the right time. The musician, as many of you know, was Itzhak Perlman. Old days with the mutton chops, sideburns as well. But this was quite a while ago, over 20 years ago. And being able to see that representation of someone with a disability on television was tremendously monumental to me, especially because it was a physical disability that was represented. And the other thing was that he was playing the violin, and not only was it a very virtuosic instrument, but it was just such a beautiful sound that he was creating. So my dad and I would listen to like CDs and tapes of Itzhak Perlman, and it really encouraged me to want to try the violin, even though it was not necessarily the most practical of choices. It was definitely something that stemmed from go for what is most beautiful first, and then sort of try to figure out all those steps from there. So I was very lucky that I was living in Toronto at the time, and there was a pediatric rehabilitation hospital known as Holland Bloorview. They're sort of like in the North York area of Toronto, for those who know Toronto. And I had gone to this center to get a lot of different types of adaptations made. So I had a myoelectric arm, which was a dual arm that I could just open and close using muscle impulses. That was really fun to show off at elementary school. To have a robotic arm. I had a swimming hand that was waterproof. So just a lot of things that allowed me to experiment and try as many things as possible. I was also very lucky that there was a nonprofit called the War Amps here in Canada, where they give additional funding that insurance doesn't cover for recreational devices for kids with limb differences. And that was originally started by veterans of the wars in the 40s and 50s. And after these veterans got older, they said, you know what, we want to continue supporting young kids to just give them fulfilled and fulfilling lives. So I was very lucky in that sense to be in Canada and Toronto, and the engineers and prosthetists came up with a very simple device. It's called a spatula because it has a tongue that is sort of at the very end. It's attached by a couple pieces of Velcro. Because the frog of this bow comes out, they slid an aluminum tube that was welded originally, and then just sort of stuck through, and I was able to sort of move my shoulder and have enough contact point with the strings in order to make a sound. So trying to find a teacher to make this happen was really a challenge at first, because I think that a lot of educators didn't want to take on a student who might ultimately be disappointed that they can't achieve something. But there was one teacher in Mississauga, sort of where I was living at the time. Her name was Peggy. And she said, you know what, we're not even going to start with the bow. We're going to just pizzicato everything. So I remember the first several books of the Suzuki method, which is like sort of an early music education method for young violinists. I used my left hand for everything. So I did like Twinkle Twinkle like this. Then I get to the next song. And yeah, thank you. So I would do that for the first, I would say, 3 months of my time, to a point where I remember my first recital, everyone else was using their bows, and I came up with left-hand pizzicato. It felt really out of place, but it was after that that I put the bow to the string. And, you know, it didn't sound great. It was very scratchy, and I think the prosthetists were wondering if there was something wrong with the adaptation itself, but I think it was just like any other beginner violinist. We just needed to, I needed to work on my bow technique. And that wasn't something that my teacher could work on directly with me in the traditional sense, because there are so many joints that are involved in the right hand, especially with the bow, from your knuckles to your wrist to your elbow, and I'm only using my shoulder in the end. So my teacher's pedagogy was essentially, she explained to me the most important limbs that you have as a musician are not or a violinist are not your hands, but your ears. And she said that because she just got me to listen to as many recordings as possible, and I just tried to imitate as best as possible whatever that beautiful sound was like. And eventually I ended up developing a technique that was just very much directly related to my own physicality. And this was very interesting for me because at a certain point, I was always trying to do things despite my so-called small hand. And all of a sudden, the small hand, this disability or impairment, as one would say, would be the sort of medium in which I would have to really pay attention and try to make this into something that was the best representation of the music and the sound that I was trying to produce on the instrument. But because of that, I think that there was a very pure relationship that I had with the instrument, and it was really all about the basic concepts, and you'll see this in all string players. It's the speed of your bow and the amount of weight that you put on to adjust for volume, and then the so-called sounding point, like how close and far your bow is to the bridge or the fingerboard in the end. And then from there, it's really an exercise of the imagination, and the technique is in service of whatever that is. So it took a while to get to that point, but I was very lucky that, again, that music was not only an activity, but a way of being able to be perceived in the world as someone not with a disability, but someone who could do something that you could hear and not necessarily even see at times. So maybe I'll play another piece of music. This is one of my grandmother's favorite pieces. This is the opening to the Butterfly Lovers concerto. You can sort of observe some of the bow technique that I'm using at that point to control color and sound, and I'll sort of go onwards after that. Okay. Thank you. It's a very special piece for my grandmother, especially, who's not here anymore, but I always think that reflects her spirit in some way, so thank you. So yeah, just like Barry mentioned, I started really becoming serious about the violin throughout high school and ended up going to college and doing multiple degrees in music performance. And I was, again, sort of doing things that were so far removed from what I thought I would, or where I thought I would be when I was first attempting to not play the recorder, and all of a sudden having opportunities to play concerts. I remember playing for like the Kennedy Center and meeting the president or the Dalai Lama, and playing at the Pope's birthday, things like that. Those were just incredibly, how can I say, moving and meaningful experiences in sort of my young career after I finished my master's. But I did feel like my options were relatively limited as a performer unless I was going to do solo work the rest of my life, which is always a very rare thing for a musician. I thought about doing orchestra and sort of joining the symphony orchestra, and I did do some work sort of on occasion with the Toronto Symphony, for instance, but just the amount of stress on my shoulder alone and sort of doing Mahler symphonies, I knew that that wouldn't be necessarily as sustainable for my physicality, and I just had to try to find a balance in what I was doing as I was continuing to play recitals here and there. So what I ended up doing was I went back to Holland Bloorview and really took an interest in music therapy. So I moved back to Canada after I finished at Yale and worked as an intern in that department, really seeing the profound effects of music for children who have disabilities that were even more challenging than my own. Those who couldn't even hold instruments, for instance, and were using music as some form of connection to the outside world. One of the projects that I worked on was with an instrument called the VMI. And rather than, again, explain it, I'll just show sort of a video of some of the work that was happening. This was probably about 15 years ago now.
Thank you for choosing VMI, Virtual Music Instrument. Virtual Music Instrument uses cutting-edge motion detection technology to translate movements into music. The system generates musical sounds from movements interacting with colorful shapes on the screen. When you start the software, it will activate the connected webcam. The webcam captures yourself and your movements related to the shapes you draw on the screen. VMI will interpret the motion and transfer the output to speakers.
So I thought it was an incredible project to work on within this clinical setting, and music therapy is just an incredible field that I think is underappreciated in a lot of healthcare settings. But I was able to witness this firsthand for students, or I should say patients, who are trying to do something as simple as like raise their hand or extend their amount of flexibility. And the incredible thing about doing this type of work, like for instance that last song with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the user was in this position in which like a clinician could just say, do these exercises 10 times. Or you can play a song and try to do something that feels creative and expressive. And the amount of engagement from that child to be able to do those exercises were always going to be, how can I say, more reps, for instance, of the same motion than if they were just told to do sort of a clinical type of exercise. and it really sort of impacted me in a sense that, like, understanding that music has this power to intersect so many different spaces in order to humanize in places where someone might feel less than human because they're in the setting where they're attending to some type of deficit or illness or sickness in some way. And what the philosophy was in these music therapy settings was that your disability was not necessarily your medical diagnosis, but your environment, and those environments can be enabling or disabling in some respect. And that environment, of course, includes the tools that we're using, especially within the musical context. So I really got thinking after this, how can we use this VMI in different spaces outside of the clinic? And there was a friend that I had who was also at Holland Bloorview. His name is Eric, and Eric was a violinist in high school, and then he became paralyzed because of an illness that he had. And Eric and I got talking, and we said to each other, you know what would be really interesting? What if we use the virtual music instrument as a way for you to play the violin again, and maybe play some chamber music with some of our mutual colleagues and friends? And he said, you know, he would be up for it. So at that point, the VMI initiative was born. This was sort of my first foray into like a special project that intersected disability technology and music. And Eric, essentially, we programmed the instrument to push out sounds that were from professional violinists. So whenever I was traveling, I would take little recordings, the snippets of people's playing who are violinists, and then we would attach those sounds to the various shapes that Eric saw on the screen, and then we interacted with them. So we started off with something very simple to just see if we could do a proof of concept. So we did Pocket Bell's Canon, and I'll show you how that sounded for the first time. Let's try the first two variations.
Which one would you like to keep? The quarter notes?
Let's keep the quarter notes.
Okay, so that was...
Is that okay, Eric? I think we're covering you right now. We can't hear any of the counterpoints, so come in too. Why don't we start from there first? When I see someone like Eric producing music and we can react off of that into something completely new in a new territory, well, it makes it fresh again.
For me as an artist, it was fascinating to see how technology was married into the aesthetic and music making experience.
Yep, we're all playing.
The ability to create music with just the wave of a hand, with small gestures or moving your head, it was something very powerful.
I've learned playing with the violin for about 8 years before I got paralyzed. Ever since I got paralyzed, I really didn't think that I was able to play an instrument again. I've never done it in the settings like this before, not mentioning being on the stage. It's an incredible feeling. It's not something that I thought I would be able to do before the VMI was invented. It's pretty good.
Yay! Bravo! Great job, Eric. So that was our sort of first initial attempt. And then we expanded the project such that Eric played with the full symphony orchestra in Montreal a few months after that. And I think that this entire project really highlighted for me the idea of Eric's transformation from someone who one might perceive as having a disability or being incapable in some way, and then being up on a stage and making music and sharing agency in making that space more beautiful. I think that as we continue to see these incredible performances at Banff, I always like to think whatever is on stage is really what we're trying to center and honor as some aspect of the human experience, whether that be the representation of the musicians' backgrounds or the composers that we're choosing to highlight. We're really saying that if it is on stage, it is worthy of attention, respect, and I think to a certain extent dignity as well. And the idea that Eric could be in this position really transformed him in a way that I think helped the audiences understand what disability really was, and that isn't necessarily a limitation, but a unique perspective upon the world. And something that is inherently universal as well, because we always speak as disability as something that is othering in some respect. But I always like to say that, you know, we're either disabled or not currently disabled, because all these things are temporary in the end. So the more that we're really focusing on aspects of accessibility in the work that we're doing, especially within this very specific niche of classical music, which sometimes honors sort of a very narrow view of what excellence can be, I actually do think this is a pathway that allows us to grow and evolve and doesn't sacrifice the integrity of the art, but only expands it and makes it more relevant as we continue to do this work now and into the future. So after this project, I was so intrigued about this type of work that I decided to do a little bit less performing, and then I did a master's in education and really focused on creating programming for kids in Boston to be able to access music, and that's where I am at right now. It's called the Music Inclusion Program, and it's in a small inclusion school south of Boston in a neighborhood called Dorchester, and half the kids have disabilities and the other half are so-called typical children. And my hope is that when we're really creating these environments for young children especially, that they really see chamber music or an orchestra as something that just includes folks who have disabilities, and that is the norm rather than the exception. So that work continues, and we continue to try to find different adaptations for kids with cerebral palsy, hearing, speech, vision challenges, and we sort of just work as best as we can in the moment to center, again, the art first, because I think when you do that, everything else sort of follows, but we do have to have a sort of less rigid definition of what that art might look like and sound like. And oftentimes, actually I would say all the time, it always is for the better. And I continue to travel and advocate for those with disabilities. I continue to perform whenever I can, and in my travels I always like to visit other communities where disability is present. So I want to share one more story before we get to questions. I was in the Middle East a couple years ago, and there was a girl who had lost both of her arms because of some explosions, IEDs in her area. I played a concert at the rehabilitation center where she was staying, and she really loved the violin I was playing. Meditation from Thais, I remember, and she was drawing pictures with her feet the entire time. So at the end of the concert, I had her pluck the instrument with her toes. I'll just share a little bit of that with you. Okay, let me try this. Okay. Okay, get ready. Okay. Go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another. Mm-hmm. And then, yay! Good song! Very good! Yeah, sometimes you have to see my hands like yours. Just go like that in the end.
شايفة ايده زي اجرك نفس الاشي عم بيعمله.
So that girl's name is Farah, and she was obsessed with string music afterwards, after I left. We shared like playlists and things like that, and she really wanted to play a string instrument eventually, and we were trying to figure out with a music school, local music school in her area, like what we could actually do, and we came across this sort of fun solution. I'll just share it with you now. And, every single time I'll tell her, it's like, oh, yeah, we played your video in Calgary or Banff in Canada. So she's always really happy when, we're sort of staying in touch. So just stories like that are really beautiful for me, just because, again, we see this representation of young children in this world who might be experiencing tremendous hardship, and that intersection of music and seeing the whole person really centers the mission of what we do as classical musicians. And I challenge everyone to say that, she is not an excellent musician, because she is doing so much that I couldn't even begin to imagine what she'll continue to do in her life as a result of her work as a cellist and musician and just human being in the world. So yeah, there's so much more I could talk about, but I know that we're short on time. So maybe I'll close here and answer any questions that you might have. I'm just going to share my email at the very end, I think. There you go. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure.